Hey guys, welcome back to Crypto Pride. Not a financial advisor, and they say it's not financial advice. Guys, what's the hottest token out there right now? Everybody's talking about it. You see it on the screen. It's Sui. However you want to pronounce it. But it's one of the hottest tokens out there. They're saying it may flip Solana. Great price. You see the chart has been going bananas, guys. Bananas. But today, I'm going to have the co-founder, CPO of Miston Labs, Adeni, who's going to talk about Sui. You know, he helped create Sui, So check this out. Very, very detailed case. Everybody want to know what's going on with Sui, why it's going up, what are the benefits of holding the token. Guys, without further ado, definitely check out this interview. Peace. First question, how does Sui stand out among all these other layer ones? What makes Sui so special?
Sure thing. So what makes Sui special is actually a number of things. I want to go into Move very quickly and I'll explain a bit further. While we're at Facebook, a team led by Sam did some research in a multitude of languages that are available. And we just found that there's no way we could have stood in front of a regulator with Solidity or any other programming language without being able to give a guarantee on the correctness of the transaction that happened. So it's one thing to do a transaction and it fails, but it's another thing to do a transaction and then you end up losing money. So money is valuable because you trust you can retrieve it for value at the end of the day or for face value of what it represents. And if you have incorrect programming that could cause losses, which we see all the time in EVM, there's always a hack. We think there would eventually be $1 billion hack on EVM. It's impossible to keep secure. You cannot build a sustainable ecosystem, a financial ecosystem around that. So we built Move specifically to be safe. Now, when we left Facebook, what we did is we took Move and then we improved upon it to make the developer experience a lot more natural. The world of Web3 forces developers to think around accounts. They talk about account abstraction. Everything is account-based. Well, unfortunately, that's not how the world really works. Everything in the world you think of, this pair of glasses is an object, this phone is an object, everything is an object. So developers think of objects, and programming languages have taken on an object-oriented construct for decades, and we're going backwards. So with Sui, very, very different model where everything is built as an object. And because everything is an object, myself transferring $5 to you versus someone buying an airline ticket are two distinct events happening at the same time. So we don't have an issue of trying to really line everything up and do a transaction in a sequential way. We can parallelize the whole thing. So Sui allows you to parallelize millions of user intent at the same time and do that without having any kind of congestion. That is the innovation. It's not just the Move programming language. It goes all the way from the object model Move all the way down to the storage layer. That's why Sui is the only chain that doesn't have a max throughput. The more machines you throw at Sui, the faster it gets. So you don't think of a single machine, you think of boxes that go in parallel. So this is how we build search at Google. Our company is full of Googlers, Facebookers, people who've actually built infrastructure for billions. It's how you build search at Google. It's how you build infra at Facebook. You build it to be scalable from day one. And it's truly unique. No other blockchain has that kind of property.
Now, in regards to speed, tell everybody how fast Sui is compared to other blockchains that are out there.
Sure. So what we set the team the challenge of is we need to make the ability for users to do things on a platform as fast as a website, or if not faster. So today, to do a transaction on Sui, if you want to do a swap, for example, on SuiLend, the transaction will be done in less than 700 milliseconds, right? We're talking about final, not optimistic, actual finality, end-to-end, from when you click a button to when you get a refresh. Most websites, the average load time is 3 seconds. So Sui is faster to finality than a website. It's actually like 14 times faster to finality than Solana, for example. So it is a game changer in terms of finality. But the benefit of that is that you now increase the surface area of use cases you can build. Now you can build games that every move can be recorded on chain. You can do concert tickets directly on chain. You can conjure up a number of different user interactions on chain that you generally wouldn't do with high latency systems. And one thing I was mentioning, it's great to have low latency, but what we also get is high throughput. So because Sui is designed in such a way where every object is distinct, we can effectively allow validators to throw more hardware in times when there is more demand for throughput and take that hardware offline when there's no longer demand. That is the only system that does that. But that's how traditional high-scale compute systems work. when in times of peak demand, let's say it's Christmas and everybody's buying turkeys or whatever, you throw more machines on so you can process more transactions. And when Christmas is over, you turn those machines off. So we don't have a maximum throughput. The current production system we have today in Sui, with the lowest hardware configuration, we've benchmarked it to about 297,000 transactions, peer-to-peer transactions per second. Now, we've also shown that with Pilotfish, if you add 7 times the hardware to Sui, you get 7x of performance and 0 increase in latency. So it's an optimal system. One, is very high throughput, very low latency. It is the industry lowest latency by quite a long stretch. It's actually a technical marvel the way the team was able to develop it in a short space of time. But it allows you to really build really compelling consumer applications that don't bring a lot of friction. And waiting for a website to load is already painful, but to wait for a website and then a transaction is another bit of pain at the same time.
All right, now when it comes to developers, what type of projects are being built on Sui and use cases pretty much? What are you seeing a lot of people are trying to implement on the Sui blockchain?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good question. So one of the areas we indexed on when we started with Sui is we wanted to go to a use case where we felt we could show 100x improvement on the competition, because it's great to be 2x better, but really no one cares. You need to be 100x better than what exists in the market. Gaming is the way we went, and gaming generally always is fast to adopt technology than any other industry. It's pushed the boundaries of AI, it's pushed the boundaries of high performance compute, it's pushed the boundaries of memory. It's always been something that's pushed the industry forward. So we built the chain to tackle the issue around ownership in gaming. And I'm happy to say that we've onboarded a ton of game devs who are building amazing applications on Sui. 3 of the top listed companies, publicly listed companies in Korea, NHN, Netmarble, FNC, NCSoft are building on Sui already. We had Onboff and SNK already building on Sui. There's a long myriad of, I think it's something like 75 different publishing houses already building on Sui. So that's an area that Sui is actually doing really, really well. And we announced a games console called the Sui Placer X1 earlier this year, which is integrated with a very amazing operating system called Playtron. And that's going to really allow gaming to come on a different level for Web3 and Web2 as a whole. The other thing is you have to have a very strong financial ecosystem. And it's one of the things that liquidity begets more liquidity. So Sui is literally top 10 for a chain that's only 15 months old, top 10 in terms of TVL. That's total amount of value locked in DeFi protocols. And the thing that's unique in Sui is there are decentralized finance primitives that you can build on Sui that you just can't build anywhere else, right? I mentioned something around intent before. Sui allows you to basically coordinate up to 1,024 individual user intents or even autonomous agent intents at the same time with a single transaction and one approval, which is unique. Other blockchains require to click and approve per transaction. Sui lets you do it once and then you're done. That's really exciting because now we're seeing a lot of aggregators built in an ecosystem that allows you to do a trade but get the optimal transaction execution and best price across all number of DEXs at the same time. So that is something we're very excited about. And another area is commerce. We recently announced that USDC is coming to Sui, and very quickly we also announced a partnership with MoviePass. So MoviePass is going to really redefine how films are funded, but at the same time how people pay for movies at the same time. So USDC onboarded into the movie space, but at the same time allowing people to fund movies that they care about and build a lot of following around things that they really, really care about. I think you're going to see, I don't want to go into too much detail, but you're going to see a lot of really exciting user engagement mechanisms that have never been possible. And I think I'd also say one last thing. The session cookie is effectively dead, right? Being able to follow users with a cookie is one of the worst things ever invented, but at the same time allow the industry to go very, very far. We believe now that with the advent of Sui, that model is going to be turned on its head, and new forms of advertising is now going to be possible using Sui. ZK login is a mechanism that lets you log in just using your Google account or Facebook or whatever you want, and that ties in automatically to an on-chain address that is fully private. We believe that's going to be the new form by which you can actually start building exciting advertising models and new forms to actually onboard users to Web3 that's never been possible before.
Speaking of ZK login, can you explain that a little bit better on how, I guess, people are not going to have to, remember their seed phrase and stuff like that? Do a little explanation of the ZK login, how Sui is going to implement that?
Very good question. So I'll go on record in saying, in my opinion, I mean, this is just my opinion, wallets are the worst disservice we've done to consumers. The idea that, one, I'm about to play a game or I'm about to do a transaction, you're asking me to go and download an application, buy a token, come back, hopefully you've not lost me by then, and then do some transaction I may not or may not understand. That is just insane. And when I want to transfer value from one account to another, I need to remember some memorable long phrase, or we've just completely convoluted something that should not be. Web 2 is excellent at providing great user experience. And I think we could take a lot of learnings from Web 2 in that regard. So what we've done at Miston for the first time possible is we've invented a new form of zero knowledge proof, which we call ZK login, that effectively allows anybody with an existing OpenID Connect account. So whether you're using Google, Facebook, Kakao in Korea, you name it, any account that supports OAuth, you can create an account on Sui in a private way entirely. And a layer one will verify your session rather than some middleware. So without any middleware required, I can sign into Google. And just by my sign into Google, we generate a mathematical proof of that account that generates an account on chain. And that means now you can transact with Sui without ever having to remember a passphrase. If you forget your password, you reset your Google account, your funds are still there, ultimately. And that's a way to onboard people. So hopefully I'll be able to show you an example sometime during this call. You can just click a button to sign in with Google, Facebook, Twitch, you name it. You instantly have an account on chain. And to add on to that, we've married ZK login with something called sponsored transactions. So it's one thing to solve the problem of signing in with email, but then if you're asking me to go and buy gas, what is gas? What does that even mean? I don't do it today. Why do I need to be introduced to such a new concept, right? So we have something called sponsored transactions where the application dev or someone else, maybe by ads or maybe some other mechanism, can actually pay the gas on your behalf. So we've separated the concept of who initiates the intent or who initiates the transaction from who pays the fees. So it means that users can onboard using their traditional Web 2 account. Secondly, they can transact without ever having to worry about concepts of gas. So, and then the final thing I want to touch on is usernames, right? Like the last thing to solve is, okay, so you've onboarded me with email. You've allowed me to transact without worrying about gas, but I want to send money to a friend. Do I need to remember a seed phrase, all these long paraphrases? That makes no sense. So every account in the Sui ecosystem has a mechanism which we call SuiNS, which is a domain name system. So every app can have a domain of its own. So if I want to send money to you, it would just be your name at stashed or your name at app name or whatever. So the concept now that previously assets that I had were locked within a single application, now it's easy for Web 2 users to understand that I could transfer an asset from one application domain to another application domain using an email-like primitive. So we think that's a perfect UX for Web 2. And we think Sui is very, very well set to have large user adoption just because it's got the best UX. It allows developers to build Web 2-ish kind of experiences with the least amount of friction.
All right, next question. Let's try to wrap this up. What everybody pretty much wants to know is the Sui Tokenomics. Can you go into a brief discussion about Sui Tokenomics? You know, the supply, demand, the latest tokenomics for Sui. Let us hear them.
Yeah, I could talk to you about Sui supply and demand, and also the token mechanism. So Sui is a token that is, the utility of Sui Token is for paying for gas, so the fees for transacting on the network. It's for staking, namely providing security to the network, and you earn the reward for your process transactions as part of a stake, as a staker. Separately, it's also for storing data, used for as an escrow for storing data. So unlike other blockchains, when you store data, other blockchains are very, very expensive to store data on. To store a megabyte on Sui is 100 times cheaper than on Solana, and it's like 2,000 times cheaper than storing on ETH. So you can actually store data on Sui. So if I want to store, we have NFTs on Sui where the entire image is on Sui, 4K image resolution are stored on the blockchain, not some arbitrary third-party system that may or may not be there. The actual objects and the actual data is on chain. So whenever you store data on Sui, you pay a storage fee, and that storage fee stays locked up while that state is interesting. So the more interesting data gets stored on Sui, the more Sui gets locked up in a way. So it's almost, it's deflationary in that regard. So as you have more and more data stored on blockchain, more and more Sui is taken out of circulation. So you use Sui for paying for transaction fees. You also use it for paying for storage while also staking Sui as a at a validator. It's a delegated proof of stake system that allows you to basically earn as a validator by staking with a validator of your choice. Ultimately, that is how the Sui Tokenomics works. There's something called a storage fund, where all the funds for storage that has been paid by every user is stored. And in, let's say, a year's time, today, Sui is $1.70. And maybe in 2 years' time, Sui is $10. But guess what? That NFT is not worth what I paid for back then. I can destroy that NFT and get a rebate of 99% of that asset. So you're incentivizing removing data that's not of value anymore in the long term. And then I get a rebate of the funds that I stored maybe 2-3 years ago. So it's designed as it's a really well thought out tokenomic system that we've not seen anywhere else. It was designed by our chief economist Alonso Di Cottari. It's an amazing mechanism.
So let's talk about mass adoption. How does Sui plan to onboard more people, basically?
So the biggest potential for mass adoption in Web3 is going to be gaming, and we actually believe that gaming will supercharge DeFi to a scale we've never seen before. And one thing we like to measure is capture rate in our ecosystem. It's how many people are using 2 or more applications in the ecosystem. Because it's great to have an app that does things by itself. It's very insular, right? But you want an application that drives people to multiple. And we're starting to see that spike up in Sui, which means there's more interesting things for consumers to do. Gaming, last year, something like 3.3 billion gamers spent $200 million on games, $200 billion on games last year. That is a massive user base. And we're onboarding a lot of game studios who already have games that have 100 million users, 2 million users, 3 million users. So we believe the amount of usage you'll get in the ecosystem will come from gaming, specifically with these amazing mechanisms we've developed in Sui. Now, these games are going to need users to swap in-game assets for fiat. Or we're going to need users to swap NFT X for NFT Y, or in-game asset X for in-game asset Y. What is going to power that? The DeFi primitives that have been built in the ecosystem are absolutely going to power that. So today, you're finding DeFi is used mostly by users on the first party when they're going to a website and they're transacting directly. We believe the mass majority of users will never use DeFi in that mechanism. It's going to be an integration with a multitude of DeFi mechanisms that exist today. So as a user, I do not care that I'm trading on Turbos. I do not care that I'm trading on Aftermath. I'm just trading. I'm swapping a sword for $5, or I'm giving you a sword. I'm giving you $5 and you give me a mask or something else, or a skin. And we think that's going to be what's going to power DeFi at scale. So we believe that with Sui and the strategy we've adopted, there'll be way more general mass adoption with Sui than traditional blockchains, just because the friction isn't there. And you don't have to worry about gas fees spiking. Dollar fees for Sui, for gas, over time will end up being flat because of the way the tokenomics has been designed. So even if Sui goes up 5x, with the algorithms we're bringing in, would allow you to basically peg the cost of gas to a dollar amount ultimately.
All right, I want to thank you for your time. Appreciate it. All the information that you gave me on Sui blockchain. Hope the audience like it. Make sure you guys like, comment, and definitely subscribe. And are you going to invest in Sui? I know I am. Once again, thanks for your time.
It's a pleasure.